Hi, this is Sarah Seamount, Migrant Coordinator for Idaho, and this video is to help you with your MSIS data collection at the end of the year. It is recorded June 2017. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm just going to make sure that everything is working. It seems to be. All right, so what we are going to do is we are going to talk about the MSIS data collection that comes at the end of every year. What you'll notice is I am right now in the MSIS beta site. So just so you know, this is not going to affect anyone's district. I chose Hanson, but I will not be affecting their district information. Actually, I am going to switch districts because I used them for something else. Let's do this one. Okay, so we are going to be looking at how you do your MSIS data collection. There are two reports that you need to do. So let me show you how to get to those. If you look over here underneath your district name, you will see 2016-17 data collection. We're going to go click on that, and you will see certain tabs at the top. So district info, re-interview summary, CFSGA MPO evaluation, kind of some alphabet soup there, we'll talk about that, and validation issues. So we will go through each of these tabs so that you know exactly how to do it. Because the re-interview summary and the MPO evaluation are the two reports that get submitted each year, I will be sure in the description on when we post this to YouTube, I will be sure to include the start time for each of those if you want to just go back and re-review the portion of the video that relates to the report that you're working on. So let's go ahead and get started. If you look, we're going to go district info. It says that this is Shelley Joint District. It has a place where it will say the date submitted and who it was submitted by. When you are completely finished with both reports and click submit, then it will show you and me who submitted it and when. It will also show you if there is a date and a person here. It will show you that the reports have been submitted, which means they're locked. If at any point you discover that there's something you needed to change, then you would need to just contact me at the State Department of Education, and I will unlock it for you so that you can add those extra pieces. So let's go ahead and dive in. Our first area that we're looking at is the re-interview summary. So when you go here, you'll see that it is a very short little report. There are just a couple of questions that you're going to answer. For those of you who do not have a student who met the criteria to re-interview during the year, and there are very few, unfortunately, there are very few districts that is the case for, you would click here and then you would not be required to answer any of the questions below. So if you had no students whose COEs were approved after September 1st, then you would click this button. Now, because you can fill this report out all year long as you do your re-interviews throughout the year, don't click this button if you don't have any students at the beginning of the year, because you may have students later on in the year. So I would leave that alone until you get to the end of the year. So now we are in your CFS or your re-interview summary, and it asks you what process was used by the district to complete the re-interview process. So what you're going to put here is something very simple. You can say MSIS re-interview randomized list used, and then you would put the dates that we do re-interviews, November, February, and April. And just that is enough. It shows me that you did go to the re-interview randomized list, which I'm going to show you how you get there in just a moment, and that you did that 3 times during the year, and that is adequate. So let's go look at that. If you're here and you're from the Shelley District, you would go to District Reports, and you would scroll down to district worksheets, and the very last one is the re-interview randomized list. And this will give you students with current COEs in the district in a random order so that you don't have to do any of the things we used to do with Excel and doing the random feature. This list will provide you everything that you need. I'm not going to click on it because it would show student names. So let's go back to the 2016-2017 data collection. And now back to the re-interview. Now, this is an object lesson in something that was done incorrectly. You remember I had typed some things in here, and now when I come back to it, those things are gone. And if this was a regular webinar where you were there, I'd ask you to raise your hand if you knew what I did wrong. What I did wrong is I forgot to save and finish later. So because I encourage you to use this report, liaisons, throughout the year as you do your re-interviews, please remember and use my lesson, my object lesson, as to what not to do, and always click on save and finish later. So I'm not going to retype it, but you would just, if that happens, unfortunately it's gone, you do have to retype it. So number 2 and 3 has to do with the actual students that you re-interviewed. This is the critical piece. These, the information you put in here is reported by the state of Idaho to the federal government in our annual report that we submit. And so it is really, really important that this information is all correct. So sampling procedure. Everybody should have switched over to doing random. EDUID was the old Excel procedure. So you click on random, and then now you've done a re-interview. It's late November, and you and your partner district have done that. And so now you're going to enter a new re-interview. So we're going to put in a fake student, and this student is Mickey Mouse. The original liaison was me. The re-interview date, you'll notice, is a very convenient pop-up box. We re-interviewed this family on the 15th last year, and the re-interviewer name was Partner District. And that would be the name of the district's liaison that actually does the re-interview. So you're putting the name of a person there. And then the re-interviewer district number, let's say I'm in Shelley. I would have to think long and hard what would be another district. I'll put 55. I don't think that's necessarily a neighboring district, but that's all you need to put is just the district number of the re-interviewer. And here is the critical piece. You have to select one of the 3. Was the student eligible, ineligible, or unavailable? So let's go through that. What I report to the federal government is the students who were eligible and ineligible. And so I would say to them, we had however many students that we re-interviewed. Let's say we had 110 eligible students based on our re-interview process. And so that is very, very critical that get in there. In fact, I don't know that it will let you, I'm pretty sure it won't let you submit the report with that field with no answer selected. If the student is ineligible, that is something very critical. And if you look at our procedures, our guidelines for how to do re-interviews, our rolling re-interviews, it says if the liaison finds the family to be eligible, look and then opens the envelope with the COE in it and cannot reconcile the differences and says, nope, this child should have been ineligible, then you immediately contact your regional IDNR coordinator and they will do a second re-interview and resolve the difference. If they find that the student is ineligible, we have a process to immediately remove that student from our database as a active migrant student, and you would have to cease providing migrant services to that student. The difference between that and unavailable is huge. Unavailable simply means that you have attempted to schedule this re-interview, you've contacted the family, you've talked to somebody, and they've said, oh yeah, we'll be home at Tuesday at 10 o'clock, come on over, it'll be fine, and you show up and nobody's there. Or something happens over the weekend and the family has to make a sudden move. If that happens and you've done your best to re-interview, this particular student was selected, and you cannot complete the re-interview because the family is unavailable, then you would just click on unavailable. And we do not report those numbers. So, but it is good to know how often we have that happen where a district makes a sincere effort to re-interview a family and the family is not available. Once you have done that, and I'm going to say this student was eligible, then you just click add. And now you see in your grid that you have a student, Mickey Mouse, whose original liaison that qualified them was me, The re-interviewer was my wonderful partner, whoever that is, and that is a person name, not a district name. Re-interviewer district number, the date, and the results. So those are the things that are required for each and every re-interview that you complete. So you can add, hopefully, another one here for November, 2 for February, and 2 for April. Now, even though we say 2, 2, and 2, it is okay if you do not have any in November that you could consider doing an extra re-interview in February and April. Also, if you don't get around to your re-interviews in February because of some other reason, then you could do those in March. Those dates are to give you some deadlines to help you get hopefully 6 re-interviews done every year. It does not mean that you can't do it in between or in the off months. We'd like to see that many, but I know for some districts that would be impossible. So don't feel like there has to be a particular date of the re-interview. You're not going to get in trouble if that date is not a date for a month that we typically do re-interviews. As long as they show up on your randomized list and you pull that as a fresh list every time you conduct or schedule re-interviews, then it is perfectly fine if those are in off months, so to speak. Now, once I have put this information in here, you're going to see the result was eligible. It will automatically generate a defect rate. What this does is it calculates the number of re-interviews that you have versus the number of re-interviews where the student was found to be eligible. What you want is a defect rate of 0. That means that none of your students were found to be ineligible. And since we put this student in as eligible, the defect rate is correctly calculated as 0. What we would like is for Idaho to have a defect rate that is 0. What that means is every COE that was re-interviewed was found to be eligible. And I will tell you, for the 15-16 data that we submitted, it was a defect rate of 0 for the state of Idaho. So congratulations, liaisons. You're doing a wonderful job with qualifying families. All right, the next 2 questions, number 4 and 5, are reflective, and they're just an opportunity for you to think about your process and put down anything that you think to yourself, you know, we could do a little bit more here, or we had a difficulty. How are we going to resolve that? So question number 4, what concerns or difficulties, if any, were noted as part of the re-interview process? How will they be addressed or corrected for the upcoming year? So this is something where you might look at it and say, well, we did have a slight difficulty where we hadn't really explained the process to the parents, and it made them nervous to have somebody that they didn't know coming to their home, and they expressed that later. So we're going to do a better job when we schedule the re-interviews, or better yet, at the original interview, to explain the re-interview process so that they know there's a possibility that they'll be asked to answer these questions again. And so if that's something that you discover as part of your process, this is you being reflective, noting that there was a difficulty, and then figuring out how you're going to address that before you start doing re-interviews again in the coming year. Number 5, what training priorities, if any, were identified through the process? So if you notice something on your COE and you think, oh, we maybe could have done a little better at that, or, oh, we need to have some kind of an interview protocol where we are asking some standardized questions. We need to have that available for the re-interviews, or we need to do a better job of doing those as we're doing interviews. You could put down that we want to have more training with our liaison on how to use an interview script, so to speak. And so that could be something that you put there. I do read all of these. For number 4 and 5, what I will do is, if you note a training priority for the following year, I will be sure to share that with your regional. You should too. But it just helps us to know, are there things where you feel like you need more training? Because sometimes those things don't show up until you're actually doing the re-interview and reflecting on your practice. So once you are finished with this report, you are going to say, save and finish later. Now, liaisons, this is actually my second time recording this webinar. The first time, for whatever reason, it didn't record the screen. And so in the intervening days since I last did that, we discovered a problem. If a person saves and finishes later and everything is complete in this report, and they have not opened the MPO Evaluation Report, it was allowing districts to submit with only one report completed. We think we have that fixed, but if you click on Save and Finish Later and you have everything completed, then what you will get is a button right here that says Submit. We need to make sure that both reports are complete before you attempt to submit. So for liaisons, as you do this throughout the year, you're just going to click on Save and Finish Later throughout the year. At the end of the year, if you're completely done, then let your director know that. And then as he or she, and you maybe, are working on your MPO evaluation, you'll know that this report is done. Because these are turned in simultaneously with a single click of the word Submit, it is important for people in the district to communicate with each other. Is the Reinterview Summary report done? Is the MPO evaluation done? If the answer is yes and the validation issues are all taken care of, at that point you click Submit. So these are turned in together. So for you, if you're finishing the Reinterview Summary, you've got all of your re-interviews in here, you've done a little reflecting and you're done. You click Save and Finish, and then you would just notify your director that you have completed the Reinterview Summary report, and you will probably not see the button that says Submit. That'll be done after the second report is finished. So that is the point where we're going to go ahead and stop this part of the video and continue on to the next part. And so I will make sure that the timestamp for this moment is in the description so that you can easily find the next section of the video. One last thing to mention, Save and Finish. Always click Save and Finish Later, because as you saw earlier, if you don't, you will lose your work. All right, so now we're going to go on to the CFSGA MPO evaluation. And the CFSGA is where some of the data is coming from, but really what this is an MPO evaluation. So I'm going to refer to it as that. The MPOs, as you know, are the measurable performance outcomes that we have identified as a state that we would like for all of our students to achieve these outcomes based on the services provided by the migrant program. These were based on a comprehensive needs assessment done by the state. So many of you were in the committees that actually created these, and thank you so much for your work. It's too much for any one person to do, and much more valuable a process with your work through as stakeholders as we did the process. So we started with a comprehensive needs assessment. Then we did a service delivery plan where we created measurable performance outcomes and strategies to meet the needs that we had identified in the comprehensive needs assessment. When you are doing your CFSGA, your Consolidated Federal and State Grant application every year in June, you will be selecting the MPOs that you're going to work on for the coming year. This data collection is the opportunity at the end of that year to then say, how did it go? So what you're doing is, in the CFSGA, you're actually choosing things for the future. In this MSIS data collection, you're reflecting back on how you did at meeting those MPOs that you selected the year before. So this is a form of evaluation of your program, and it allows you to reflect back on how you did based on the selections that you made. The reason that it is not due in June at the same time so many other things are due here is because a lot of these MPOs, the measurable performance outcomes, relate back to the summer term. And so since summer term has not yet happened for many districts in June, or is about to happen, or is concurrently happening, it would be too soon for districts to complete this document. So you have until September 15th to complete both reports, the Reinterview Summary and the MPO Evaluation. That is a critical deadline. It is not extendable. So I would recommend to people that you say in your head or on your calendar, this is due by September 1st. I will also be closely monitoring to see who has turned in their reports. After 5 p.m. on September the 15th, the 16-17 year in MSIS will close, and you will no longer be able to access it. And then we will roll over on the 18th of September into the 17-18 MSIS database. So if these things are not completed by September 15th, that's a real problem because they can't be completed afterwards. So please be sure that you are doing this just as soon as you can. If you have completed summer school anytime after summer school ends, you can do this. So you could be doing it much earlier than September 15th, because I think it's safe to say everyone will be done with summer school sometime in August. So please feel free to do it sooner. I also know that's a very busy time of year for districts, and that's why you have a little bit of extra time to get it completed. If you do not have a summer school program, you can do it now. So let's go ahead and get started. If you look below, you will see that you have 3 tabs. These 3 tabs will be replaced in 17-18 by 5 tabs. We've divided it up a little differently for 17-18, but for 16-17, this is still working from the old service delivery plan, and so this is based on the MPOs that were written to for that plan. So it says here in the directions, please include quantitative data in the comments whenever possible. For example, if you have 82% of students who made gains, and that was the goal, or the goal was 80%, then if you would please put that percentage in the comments. It does require that there be a comment in order to have no validation issues. So if there is nothing more to be said than what you've said by saying yes or no, then you do at the very least have to type none or NA. I don't believe that you can have a selected goal where you've put down whether you achieved the goal or not achieved the goal and not have a comment. So you do need to have something in every comment box for every goal that you selected, for every outcome you selected. If you did not meet the goal, include problems you encountered and ideas for changes to positively impact migrant outcomes in the future. So you could say, for example, we had low attendance at a parent event, and that can really affect the percentage of parents who report on a survey that they've learned something from your parent event if you have a very, very small number. So what would be a solution for that? Maybe to schedule your parent event at a day or a time of year that is more helpful for the parents to be able to come. So you could say, for example, we will schedule in March before much of farm work in our area increases in the spring. So I absolutely am okay with you describing your successes here as well. I think sometimes we do focus on the things that we do that we want to improve, and it's also great to acknowledge that we sometimes just get it right. So please feel free to describe any successes. So that is how you use your comments. Excuse me. So now let's look at a particular goal. So in this district, there's each of the goals was selected. So we have 1-1, 1-2, and 1-3 all selected, which is perfectly fine. You only have to select the goals that are bolded in your CFSGA. They aren't bolded here, but if you'll notice, the checkbox is already done for you. So this report is going into CFSGA from 16-17, from last summer, and it is pulling up what you selected as goals that you were going to work for, the MPOs that you were working on specifically. So any of those that you did not select, it will tell you that this goal was not selected, and it will not allow you to put results in. Now, I will just give this a small fix. If you discover that, wow, we really did this, and we have data to back it up, and you did not select it on your CFSGA for 16-17, please feel free to contact me. I will get it opened for you. You can go check that box, save, submit, and then it will show in here that you were working on it, and that will allow you to put the results from your measurable performance outcome. So if you have one where it says that you did not select that goal, it is possible to change it even after the fact, so that you can put down the evidence that you collected. So in this MPO, let's go to 1-2. It says by the end of 16-17 program year, 75% of migrant students will receive a referral, including health services based on identified needs. Now this says as documented on the family intake form. I will talk about that in just a moment, but let's talk about 75% of students who had an identified need received a service. So a service referral, including health services. So if this district says, I'm going to do the math, I've looked at the number of students where we identified a need, I've looked at the referrals that those students received, and you know what? We had 98% of students had a referred service. And you could even say 2% represents family that did not receive services on a referral. And the reason you might choose to put that there is that tells me that you have provided a referral to 100% of students that had an identified need. And this is, remember, we're still in the school readiness tab, so this is all about preschool. So this tells me you've provided a referral to 100% of students that had an identified need. And so therefore, the 98% is fantastic. The 2% doesn't represent that you didn't provide the referral. It's that this family, for whatever reason, did not receive the service, because as you know, on a referred service, this family does have to receive the referral. You can use your reports in MSIS. There's a wonderful report that you will find. Aha, I learned my lesson, save and finish. So I don't want to lose that. So I'm going to go to district reports. And if you go here to student services, I'm not going to click run again, but this will tell you for your students for the year who received a referred service. It gives you names, it gives you the referred service, yes or no. It gives you a lot of important data. So you can run that report as part of your data collection process. So now I'm going to go back. Ah, look at that. It's still there. That's awesome. So this is something that you could put in your comments. You can, anything that you would like to add, but if you have quantitative, meaning numerical data, please include that. So if you have percentages, numbers, that's very helpful. I'm not going to do all of these, but I did say I would mention here this documented on the family intake form. There are, throughout the old MPOs, some forms that are mentioned. To my knowledge, these were not completed or provided to districts. I was in a district at the time when this was being done. In fact, I was on the committee where we created these, but I don't know that those were ever created. So, since this was something that I learned from having been in your shoes, I am creating templates for all of the new service delivery plan forms that are mentioned throughout the MPOs. So if it says through a parent survey, I will give you a template for a parent survey. The question might come up, do you have to use the template I provide? Absolutely not. You can use your own template, you can make your own surveys, but I want to give people at least something that they can adapt to fit to their purposes. So in a couple of cases, you'll see, it's not going to be here because it's last year, but under math and reading, there's something that mentions a distribution log. You will have a copy of a template of a distribution log. Those will either be in Word or Excel, and so in some cases, you might find it easy to use the merge feature in Word to put student names into that report. In order to be able to do it more easily. So those will be available and they'll be on the website for you to be able to use in the fall. I have started them. I am not done. There's about 20. So I will be working on those this summer and you'll have those available to you in the fall. So since you don't have a family intake form, stop where it says identified needs. You can still answer that question to the best of your ability based on what you were given or what you know about your students. How many of your students received a referral based on their identified needs? So even though you didn't have a specific form called a family intake form, hopefully you have some way of knowing how you're meeting the needs of your students. Keep in mind on the back of your certificate of eligibility for second and third year students, one of the questions that you ask when you verify their residence is if there are any family needs. That may be one place where you would find that information that you've already been documenting. All right, so now we're going to look at one of the other tabs. This is the academics of reading and mathematics. So here's an example where this district, which is Shelley, is working on goal 2-1, and they can say if they achieved it, yes or no. And this has to do with providing reading and math supplemental support of 40 hours. And that can be done through summer school, which is probably what is happening in this case. And so they're going to look at their goal, decide if they've made the goal, and then say yes or no, and provide a comment that shows any percentage of, so they could say, for example, 85% yes for math, and this is very brief. You can, of course, if you want, you could be more descriptive. 75% yes for reading. Now, what unfortunately you're going to see is that the goal was 80% for math and reading. So, or math or reading. I think it's math and reading. So we're going to say in this case the answer was no. However, it is clear from the data that is presented here that it is really close. And this evaluation of your program is really intended to help you to have a stronger program. We're not doing a punitive, oh my gosh, you didn't make all your goals. We are asking districts to be more reflective, to look at how they're doing in meeting the needs of their migrant students. We also, as a state, are looking at how are we doing at meeting the needs of our migrant students. And so the data that you collect here will help us to know as a state how are we doing in meeting these needs and meeting the measurable performance outcomes that we've identified as necessary. So on this one, your percentages are very helpful. Anytime it asks you for a percentage, if you can include that here, then it will help me in aggregating state data. But if you did not make a goal, it is not something that you will be punished for. This is more a way for you to improve your services in the coming year. If you look at example 2- or strategy 2-2 for this MPO, this strategy was not selected. So if I click here, I can't actually type anything here. I can only type something for the strategies that I selected. And then if you look, this is our high school graduation. So there are a number of MPOs for high school graduation. I'm going to click on that because I'm curious to see, aha. So you can click around between these three tabs as you're putting your evidence in, and as long as you save before you go to the other tab up here, the other report, you haven't lost anything. However, to be on the safe side, I would save as often as you think of it and definitely at the end of each page. So that takes us through the CFSGA MPO evaluation. This is your evaluation of your migrant program based on the measurable performance outcomes that we as a state have identified. So that brings us to our very last tab, which is validation issues. So let's look and see what validation issues we have here. If you look, this is really nice. It shows you that the re-interview summary is missing the process description, concerns or difficulties, and training priorities. So that just tells me what am I missing here. Because when you're working on a report, it's easy to kind of realize, oh gosh, I don't even know what I'm missing. I know I'm missing something. This will tell you exactly what you're missing. So questions 1, 4, and 5. So once I get those taken care of, and please don't do this, this is not what we want, but I want you to see that those will go away. So now there are no validation issues with the re-interview summary. I am going to click Save and Finish later because, as you know, I could lose that. So on the CFSGA MPO evaluation, it doesn't tell you which tab you're missing information on. It just tells you that you're missing information there, either a goal achieved response or a comment. And so if you didn't write a comment, you will have to go back and write a comment for each and every MPO that you are reporting on your goal and whether or not you achieved it. So if you have something in the results column and you say yes, you do have to have some form of comment, however brief. So we will go back here. Let's do this again. Again, please do not follow my example. We know this is an awesome district, so we're going to say that they met their goals. I just want you to see what it looks like when you're finished. So I'm going to save and finish later because I'm a little bit paranoid there. And I'm going to go to this one. I'm going to make sure I have a comment. Can't do anything on that one. And yes. Okay, so this district has a save and finish later, and you'll notice at this point the validation issues go away, and the district has the opportunity to click submit. So that brings me to the last point, which is submitting. Once all of your validation issues have been resolved, then you can submit for your district. This is probably a good time to go back and just look at these and make sure there's nothing more you want to say. I don't know if you have to, but I am going to save, and then I'm going to click submit. So now you can see that I submitted it and the date and the time. You can see that, I can see that, and if I look here, I can still see everything that I answered, but I cannot change anything that I answered. So that will lock your reports. And then there's a report that I can go look at where I will see that I check periodically throughout the summer and on, and I can see who has submitted and who has not submitted, and if someone needs me to unlock it, I can unsubmit their reports so that they can make changes. So I believe that brings us to the end of this video. Sorry that it was so long, but I wanted to be thorough. I will probably at some point in the future do a much shorter one where I just kind of zip through it, but this one is a little more thorough so that if you have questions, hopefully I've answered them. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.